Get ready to be inspired by a true titan in the world of entrepreneurship. Our guest today has sold over $64 million in just 3 years, built 9 successful companies, and taught over 500,000 entrepreneurs worldwide. As a CEO of Lurn, Lurn Inc.com. He is not only a serial entrepreneur, but also a devoted philanthropist and leading authority in online product sales. After navigating his own 18-month battle with the FTC, he's now on a mission to help us, the entrepreneurs, stay compliant, and thrive in today's digital landscape. Please welcome Anik Singal.
Welcome to Power Your Profits podcast, your friendly guide in bringing your business revenue to the next level. Listen as host Dr. Susie Carter hears inspiring stories of success from her fellow entrepreneurs and transformational leaders. Prepare to make significant change to your strategies as they unravel the secrets of building multi-million-dollar businesses and the most effective tips on finance, marketing, and sales accountability. If you want to take your first steps towards explosive business growth, this podcast is for you. Without further ado, here is your host, Dr. Susie.
Anik, I'm so excited to have you. Thank you so much. First of all, I want people to hear your story from your mouth because it is pretty profound. And everyone thinks it's not going to happen to me, as I'm sure it's not going to happen to me. I'm a little guy. You're a little big guy. So let's talk about your story and why you kind of shifted and this became your new passion.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you for having me. It's a great honor and a pleasure to be able to share the story. It's a painful one, but it's become my mission. Turn your mess into your message, right? And it's become something that I've been able to really help other people. And I made that decision about halfway through my FTC investigation where I was like, I'm not going to let this be my legacy. I'm not going to let this be something that brings me down. If anything, I'm going to use it to really propel me forward and help companies. And I've already helped so many people, just learn the rules. So here, I want to start with just saying this. Before I tell my story, I want to share why this episode is very important for you to listen to. I understand right out the gate, we're going to be talking about legal compliance and compliance stuff. It sounds boring. It sounds like ridiculous. I promise you it's not going to be at all. The way that I have learned this and the way I break it down, it's going to be super engaging. You're going to learn a lot. It's not legalese talk. I'm not a lawyer. I am here to express to you as a marketer, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, how these rules apply to us, normal folks, not the lawyers, right? So it's just going to be, and what is the importance of this? Why is this so important? So I was on stage and I got thrown into this randomly where I was going to go talk about this subject. And this is how I opened, and I mean it literally I'm not exaggerating at all. So 20 years ago, I went through a health issue where I was in the ICU for 92 days straight. I was losing 2 pints of blood a day. I was getting transfusions every day to stay alive. I got so weak at one point that they had to keep my hospital bed flat. If they even lifted the bed up, my heart rate would spike to 180. And so over those 3 months, I lost the ability to walk because my legs literally atrophied. I eventually needed surgery. That was almost a 10 to 11 hour surgery. They said 50-50 if I would wake up. I woke up 6 months later, back in the hospital, needed another surgery. A month after that, back in the hospital again for another month, needed another surgery. 3 surgeries in a year. Spent most of the time in my parents' basement in a makeshift hospital. Pretty rough year. Getting investigated by the FTC for 18 months, worse. Literally was worse. And people, I say this because I think just your reaction.
Right.
And I'm not exaggerating. I'm telling you the mental torture, the psychological, the spiritual, the physical. And here's the crazy part, Dr. Susie. Here's the crazy part. They're professional as heck.
Right.
I didn't get my offices raided by the FBI. They didn't tell me to shut down my business. They didn't commandeer all my finances. They were professional. Every time we asked for an extension, they gave an extension. The thing, though, is you just don't know. Every morning you wake up, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if this is the day. You don't know how they're going to perceive or read or whatever. So you actually said something that was interesting. You said, hey, you never think it's going to happen to you, Anik. You probably never did either. And funny thing is, I actually was worried about the FTC always. From
Mhm.
day one, I knew one thing, and that was that being in the industry I was in, which is teaching people how to build businesses, I understood that was heavily regulated by the FTC. So in my company, I've had a lawyer that I consulted with. I've had a full-time paralegal who worked for me in my company. I've constrained my sales team like crazy. We don't allow creative financing. We don't allow big loans. We don't allow multiple credit cards. And the adage that I learned, okay, if you want to read the Section 5 of the Federal Trade Commission Act, which dictates what we can do in advertising, good luck. You're going to
Right.
get through about 6 lines, you're going to fall asleep. It's really, really tough to understand because it's written by lawyers for lawyers.
Right.
So here was what I was told. And it makes sense. I was told, look, the Federal Trade Commission, they are there to protect consumers. So as long as you are not harming consumers, they have no business dealing with you. So if there are no complaints, if there's no volume of complaints going to them, you're good. And I thought, that makes sense. I can do that. So what
Yeah.
did I do? I built a company that did over 247,000 course sales since 2015, 20,000 transactions a year. We had an A rating at the BBB. I would get 20 complaints a year on 20,000 transactions, 100% solved. 36-minute response time to our customers, 3 support teams all over the world, all time zones covered, holidays, weekends, didn't matter. Never once. I had over 150,000 unique customers worldwide. Never once have I received a legal notice. Contractors, vendors, never been sued. Never had any issue. Have a great reputation in the industry, even today, even after having settled with the FTC. The reason I say that is because I was actually taking it very seriously. I was building my company the best I knew under the guidelines and tracking with the KPIs to make sure we were good. My customers have loved us so much. I've had some customers actually offer to return the FTC refund that they eventually got from the fine that I paid because they were like, we don't want this. We have no qualms with you. And so I grew up in this industry and I knew, but I never, at the time that it happened, I never thought I was the one who'd get hit because there are so many bad players and we were doing
Yes.
everything else so correctly. I was just shocked. But my story started in college. Wanted to be an entrepreneur. Originally started pre-med. I was going to be a doctor, and I quickly figured that wasn't for me. Thank God to humanity. And then I switched over to business school. Figured out that's not for me. Was miserable there too. Then I was pretty much thinking I'm going to be the broke loser in my parents' basement. Ironically, I did end up in my parents' basement. I swear I set up my first office, but by the time I graduated college, I was already doing over $1 million a year in sales with info products. I fell in love with the idea of selling info products and being an affiliate. So I
Right.
just scaled that business. Went near bankruptcy twice, once in 2010, once in 2018. And then every time I almost went bankrupt. And then of course again in 2022 when we got the FTC notice, it's 3 times. And every time we went bankrupt almost, we'd come back and the business would grow and scale again to 3 times bigger than what it was before. So I'm actually kind of excited. I'm kind of excited to see where I'm going to take it now because I took the company all the way up to 40 million a year at 20+% profit margins. I'm like, all right, and then we lost that. And so now where are we going to go? Plus, I read a really interesting stat once. I can't remember what it was, but they said every billionaire has almost lost it at least 3 times. And I was like,
Right.
I am perfectly situated at this point now. Like we are good.
Like that
Um,
stat makes me feel better about my own journey, right? You're
yeah,
like,
there you go, right? I know. I'm like, that's brilliant.
okay.
So grew the company, I built a business model that was really tough. It was a publishing company. We published other people. Finding the staffing for it at the size that we were at, building it, took me 2 decades. So check this out. So again, if you want to play the violin for me here, this is the crazy part. It took me 2 decades. I finally nailed it. Okay. So when I actually got the notice from the FTC, it was May 21st, 2022. My daughter, my firstborn, was born on April 21st. So I had taken 3 weeks off. So I was literally 3 days back in the office when I get this notice. Okay. So just become a father.
Right.
When I got the notice, I'm actually on the phone because I had decided my birthday, which was coming up on June 14th, just 3 weeks from then, would be the day that I would step down as the CEO of the company and make my right hand the CEO because it was ready. He was ready. I wanted to take a year off and go play dad.
Right.
Plus, we were 2 months away from selling the company. All done. Due diligence complete, everything done. Just needed my new CEO to shepherd through the last few things, shave a couple of departments, get some cost structures down, sign the papers, and we're done. It was my biggest life dream was to sell the company before I turned 40. I was 39. Everything was great. I was going to take a year off, play dad, recoup, figure out what I wanted to do, come back, hit something else. The minute I got that FedEx letter, May 21st, I lost everything. Lost the acquisition. Now, funny enough, they never told me to shut the company down. It's a confidential, investigations are confidential.
Right.
But being me and being my transparent nature, here is the problem. Being a publishing company, Dr. Susie, if I was promoting you, if you were the
Right.
face of your product line for my company, and I'm running ads with you, doing webinars and all that, what would the first thing be when you found out if I'm under investigation? The first thing you're going to tell me to do is like, hey, could you take my stuff down? Right?
Right.
Because
Right.
you don't want that to bleed over. And fair enough. So before I even told the experts who I was publishing, which of course I was going to tell them, I shut the whole company down. I shut it all down. I laid off 80% of my staff, which I'd meticulously built over 20 years. Got down to just the few generals that we still have today and have had to rebuild. Lost millions. My fine ended up being 2.5 million. That's what we settled on. But in actuality, I estimate that it cost me about $15 million between all the opportunity costs, lost profits, legal fees, discovery, team costs. And that does not include the loss that I attained from the acquisition disappearing. That's a number I don't even want to calculate.
Right.
But that, of course, on that very minute was gone. So
Okay,
to
wait,
say that this was
wait.
disruptive would be the
Let me
greatest
just
understatement.
let me just throw up over here. Like my
Yeah,
stomach hurts for you, my friend.
yeah,
It's like
yeah,
so painful and sleep deprived. You didn't mention sleep deprived to this whole thing.
yeah. And then
So
my wife and I thought we thought that's not bad enough, so or not challenging enough, I should say. So a year and a half or a year after that, she gets pregnant with our second. So we had two little baby girls during this whole time. And here I'll end with this so that the violin can stop playing. During this last couple of years, we also got massive issues with our real estate portfolio. I've lost millions there. That doesn't go into the 15 number I told you about, because the interest rate stuff. So some of the
right.
biggest tenants of our biggest properties went belly up, left us with a
Yes.
bunch of property that's completely destroyed, and we don't know what to do with it. And I'm still dealing with it every single day. And so I am at this like apocalyptic moment of my life where I finally said, this is how my story ends? No, of course not. I already knew that. I'm like, it's not going to happen. So what do I do now? Who am I? What am I? And I thought, well, shoot, this might be a great opportunity, because one of the things I learned during those 18 months was, why does no one talk about this stuff? Why am I in, why am I one of the senior most people in this industry of marketing, digital marketing? Why am I one of the OGs, as they call it, of the space? And I didn't know any of these things. I'm in
Right.
here learning in the belly of the beast now. And I'm like, man, there are so many people that are at risk, and
Yes.
this is, we got to talk about this. So I was like, all right, maybe that's my thing. And turns out it is.
Right.
People
Yeah.
are just so warmly receiving us. We've been able to build a whole software suite, an education suite around it. And, am I making millions again? No, not yet. It'll come, but I'm really focused on service right now. And it's been good. It's been good. But yeah, do I sit down and sometimes think about what could have been and what was and how unfair it was? Sure, you know, but is that going to help me recover? No. So might as well focus on the great opportunity I'm sitting on now to help people.
So what would you say is the most surprising lesson that you learned? Like what should we know? It's always that if I knew then what I knew now. I had a similar experience in real estate. We lost millions, right? What
Mm,
took us, decades to grow. And really looking at, okay, what did I learn? What did I learn? I don't want to have a pity party, but what did I learn? And how
what
do I
did
help
you learn?
somebody else? So, what would
Yeah.
you say now, which has become the foundation and a whole new level of training and education and inspiration? And so, what was the most surprising things and lessons that you've learned?
Yeah, so it's definitely multiple fold. So I'll give you this. This is an interesting one. So August of 2021, the Supreme Court does a ruling against the FTC in a case called the AMG Capital case. So I'll try to spare all of the legalese. And remember, everyone, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm going to get some of the specifics wrong. I'm coming just as a plain, simple person with some knowledge and memory from experience. Um, the FTC has always been bringing cases under a section called Section 13B. It's a section that discusses what remedies the government has if and in case they find someone doing deceptive advertising. And they had stretched the meaning. This is not my interpretation. This is what the Supreme Court said. They had stretched their authority under Section 13B to allow them to freeze assets and literally commandeer all your money and all your cash and then put you on trial when you have nothing and figure it out. Well, August 2021, Supreme Court comes in and says, no, 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 no. You do not have that authority. That is an authority only a judge can have. What you can do is you can stop said activity. You can come in and cease and desist and stop the company from doing that, but you cannot reverse collect and freeze their assets and take all their money and do all that nonsense. Well, this was a big problem because for decades, that was exactly the clause, and that's how the FTC was working. And if the FTC can't actually recoup any financial damages, what's the point?
Right.
What are they supposed to do? So what they do is they pivot to Section 19. Section 19 is very similar to Section 13, but it just didn't come into that case. The Supreme Court didn't make a specific mention of it when they made their ruling. The difference is this: Section 13B covers web sales. So any sales that are happening on the web, so webinars, books, courses, all that. Section 19 covers telesales. So this would be Zoom sales, one-on-one sales, phone sales. This is a one-on-one. This is usually those higher ticket courses. Now, could the Supreme Court eventually rule in the same way against Section 19? Sure, but it's not been put up yet. So they pivoted and they said, we're going to go after companies a little bit harder that are doing telesales. So in my case, what happened, although the door through which they came had to do with my webinars and my web sales, even my attorney, who is my co-author on this book, Don't Say That, said to me early on, said, look, they can't come after you for any of the money that you did online, but what portion of your sales were telesales? It was about 14 million, 20% or so. He goes, the case is going to become all about that. I said, interesting. Turns out he was right. And it eventually, months and months in, became about that. Now, I thought that's great because I've had a full-time paralegal on. I run my calls squeaky clean. I've always been really careful. We don't charge above 10K. We never gouge anyone. We don't do creative financing. He listens to 3 phone calls. Because I thought, I mean, if that's the case, I was like, I'm going to win. I'm going to be okay.
Right.
My lawyer listened to 3 phone calls and calls me up and says, we have a problem. What? I seriously don't think we have a problem with my calls. He goes, I know exactly where they're going to get you. And unfortunately, it is a problem. Like, I don't know how to, we don't know how to defend that. I said, what do you mean? 4 words. What is your goal? And I thought, what the
I'll
hell's wrong with
ask
those
that
words?
question, right?
Yeah. I was like, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with that question? He goes, it's called goal setting. And I'm like, okay. And while he's talking, I'm like, Googling goal setting FTC, nothing. There's absolutely no documentation about that being wrong. I said, what are you talking about? He goes, they don't publicly talk about it, but I've been in multiple meetings with the higher ups at the FTC with other clients, and we've talked about this very thing. And they've said, we consider goal setting an implied earnings claim. Now, if you listen to it from their perspective, and we play this out now in a second, everyone will understand this. So if I say, what is your goal? And you say, hey, I want to make $12,000 a month so I can get my husband back home. He works away from home on this job and he makes 12K. And I say, well, geez, Dr. Susie, that is a great, great goal. Let's make it happen. Let me help you do that. Implied earnings claim. You just made them believe that they can get that. And so they have a lot of documentation about implied earnings claims, but they don't have anything specific that says goal setting. And their perspective is, we don't need to. Goal setting is an implied earnings claim, and we've covered implied earnings claim. Now, if you told me years ago, Anik, don't have your sales team ask this question, I just tell them not to ask this question. I really no reason. So my attorney, now again, not from me, but my attorney had told me that had that question not been on our sales calls, this entire case would have been categorically different, is what he said. Interesting. So I'm really going to go through all of this hell and have my life completely turned upside down and experience the worst thing I've ever had happen in my life because of 4 words that are on every damn sales call for every company that you can ever find. But such is the case. That's the more filmy Hollywood type of thing that I learned from this whole thing was, and the other thing I learned was, look, if they get you, they're going to get you in the sense of, and I don't mean to make that sound derogatory towards the FTC. It's not meant to at all. It's just that it's just human nature at that point, right? If you've invested a year already behind the scenes and resources and money, and you've gotten approvals and budget approvals from higher ups, you're like, it's like your career on the line at this. Like, you were going to make something of it. So I knew a few months in, I went through all the stages of grief, right? So the first was like, they got the wrong person. Then it was like denial. Then I got to a point where I was like, oh my God, they're going to let me go because they're going to realize I'm a good person. Like and then it was like, okay, this ain't going away anywhere. Like, they're not going to stop. So we turned over 600,000 documents. and they were just digging. I mean, there was going to be until they found stuff, right? And if I follow you around long enough and you're driving, you're going to roll through a stop sign. I mean, you're going to make some driving
Mistake.
infraction that can pull you over
Yeah.
on.
Your
Yeah. So
humanity, right?
yeah,
And small
yeah.
business
So
owner.
some other things I'll tell you, if you look at the original civil investigative demand that I got from the FTC, if you want to know the door, if you want to know the door through which they come running, and by the way, they're very public about this. So if you as a marketer or as a business owner are not paying attention or heeding it, they have a leg to stand on now. Since 2021, they've been like harping about this. Testimonials, testimonial usage, improper usage of testimonials is the number one door through which they'll come. So if you looked at my civil investigative document that they sent to us, which is not public, so that's something that's private that's sent to us, it was mostly full. It was like 75% full of between two things: testimonial substantiation and absolute statement substantiation. So what do I mean? So testimonials have a lot of rules around them that most people don't know. So let's say you have a Facebook group, you're a coach, you have a Facebook group, and one of your clients has a great day. They close a big deal, they had a big win, they come to the group, which is a public group, they know that, and they post their win. It's awesome. You're excited. They're excited. The community's excited. You take a screenshot of it. The next time you're doing a webinar or doing a presentation about your services or about your company, you include their story in that. Completely against the rules. And who would know that? Number one, you did not get their actual consent to use their face and likeness in your marketing so they can sue you. Okay, not a big deal. The FTC is probably not going to come around out over that. But number two, so let's say that testimonial that they posted in the Facebook group says, I can't believe I've made $100,000 my first 90 days. I've increased my business by $100,000 thanks to so-and-so's coaching. This is so powerful. You're going to laugh at this one. You need to substantiate that. You want to use it? You have to go to that person and say, prove it. I need to see the receipts. I need to see the sales. I need to see the screenshots. How intrusive is that? So, but why, Anik? Why would I have to do that? It's their claim, their statement. Well, here's the thing. As long as it's in your group and you didn't inspire or encourage it, okay, fine. The onerous is not on you to substantiate it. But then you took a screenshot and put it in your marketing, hence now making it your claim. And so if you want to proactively use it, you need to substantiate it. Okay, fine. Some people will still say, no problem, I can make that happen. Rule number three, and this is where it all falls apart. Is that indicative of your typical customer? Is that the typical result of your typical customer? And most business owners have no idea what their typical customer is or what their typical customer gets. Now, you can define the typical customer. So in the case of body.com that owns the P90X program, they go out of their way to say, hey, the typical customer who completes the 90-day physical and diet program sees X amount of results. Now, sure, if you've got substantiation, backing, proof of that, you have all the logs, you can use results-based testimonials, but you can't use ones that are extremely different. They got to be within that range. And you have to define the typicality. And this is where I'm telling you, I review this all the time for people. This is where like 98% of testimonials just fall apart.
Right.
Because the businesses don't have that. And then number four is easy. But it's one that most people don't know. Every time you do testimonials, you have to have a disclosure disclaimer within proximity of it. A lot of business owners think, I got shoved at the bottom of the page. It's there. Not enough. Every time you place those testimonials, you have to have that disclosure saying, hey, not all results are typical. This is a unique experience of a particular person. So the door number one through which they have now done multiple press releases, they have issued multiple rulings around the usage of testimonials and endorsements, is testimonials. Clean up your testimonials and you will have significantly reduced your risk right away. So people say, Anik, what should we do? Your testimonials should be, in my opinion, and this is what I'm doing now, and it's working brilliantly, they should be general, they should be character or experience-based. Not Dr. Susie helped me blah, 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 specifically do this. It's Dr. Susie's program is one of the best I've ever been in. I love being around her. She always lives up to what she says, and it has been life-changing for me. And I encourage everybody else out there to experience what she's doing. And you don't realize people get so hooked to like, but that's not like I need that like the big results and big numbers. What you don't realize is you open yourself up to legal
Right.
exposure because like I just said, it's the number one thing they're looking for. Number two, you actually attract the wrong person. You actually attract the wrong customers with the type of hypey marketing. You actually bring in people that are what I call down market versus up market. Up market people like the character and experience-based testimonials will be drawn to that. So your customer base actually gets much better when you do compliant marketing. All right, so testimonials. We wrap that up, put a bow around it, clean it up. It'll help reduce risk a lot. Number two, what I call absolute statements. So I've got a really funny story here, but this will help show you just how the regulators think about this. What's an absolute statement? It's an absolute statement. It's an absolute statement. 3 out of 4 doctors recommend this product. Really? How? What? Show me the study. Did you just call 8 of your friends and get 6 of them to say yes?
Right.
I want to see the actual sanctioned study, but it gets even more nitpicky than that. Absolute statements are just statements of fact when you say them. They're very specific and detailed. So when I was 25 years old, I won a really awesome honor from Business Week magazine that I was voted to be the #2 entrepreneur under 25 or under by Business Week magazine in the entire country. So for many years, I used that in my webinars, probably for far too long because I'm 41 now. So there was, I was still using it 4 years ago, 5 years ago, I was still using it.
You're listening to another episode of Power Your Profits podcast. We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors. Overwhelmed by the complexity of business profit strategies? Jump aboard the Bullet Train to Big Profits course, a streamlined solution by Dr. Susie Carter. This course is designed to uncomplicate the path to profitability. Imagine being able to identify and execute profit strategies with ease, skyrocketing your revenues. Visit course.poweryourprofits.com and sign up for the Bullet Train to Big Profits course today. Are you tired of struggling to take your business to the next level? Power Your Profits is the game-changing book you've been waiting for. Dr. Susie Carter, creator of the Predictable Success Method, reveals her proven strategies for explosive growth. From daily operations to marketing systems, this comprehensive guide empowers you to achieve predictable revenue and profit growth. Don't miss out on this invaluable wisdom. Transform your business today. Find your copy at books.poweryourprofits.com.
Now, the problem is Business Week got bought out by Bloomberg a long time ago, decade ago, and got nuked, meaning the entire website went down, the magazine, they just killed it. I don't know why they bought it. So I would say this in my webinars. And when we were going through the investigation with the FTC, they show up and said, we can't find any proof of this. Prove it, that you were voted top 3 entrepreneurs under 25 by Business Week. Now, my problem is I've since lost the magazine. I didn't have the physical magazine. I can't buy it. I can't find it. I looked on eBay. I can't find the issue because it's so old.
Right.
And the website's gone. So the URL that I had saved, that I had proudly sent to my father to say, hey, look at this, was no longer pulling up anything. This turned into a 10-day back and forth. And this was going to end up in my complaint letter as a lie. Even though, I did not lie. I know for a fact I won that award. And so we found an article written by my university about it. But they said that's not good enough because that was an article written and it's not referencing any media. It's just, you could have just told them to write it. So thank God we found Wayback Machine. Wayback Machine found it. So I was able to put that URL into Wayback Machine and we went 15 years ago and, found the link and found the screenshot and sent it to them. And as soon as we did, it went away. They said, okay. So the second thing that they really look for are claims that you are making about yourself, about your product that are specific, that are defined, or what I call absolute. You need to substantiate them. You need to have undeniable proof. So I say, hey, I've done over $100 million in sales online. I can prove it to you within a moment's notice. I have spreadsheets that just have a list of every single sale I've ever done. So 2 key areas that probably commanded 70% or so of my CID was testimonials and substantiation for things I've said.
So as you're talking, I have a checklist in my head going, we did that, we've done that, we've done that, we've done that, right? Which is scary. Because again, most people are like, that's not going to happen to me. But what I love, right? It's lemons. You took lemons and made them into lemonade, right? You recently developed and patented software to help us. It's designed for compliant marketing. So talk about that. What does that look like? We talked a little bit about it in the green room, but this is huge, just to go, oh my God, yes. I want to make sure I'm dotting the I's, crossing the T's, because ignorance is not bliss, right? As small businesses, if you've been sued, right, ignorance is not bliss. IRS doesn't care, SEC doesn't care, FTC doesn't care, right? A rule's a rule, whether you know it or you don't know it. So let's talk about that. Talk about the software that you've created.
Yes. So, thank you, by the way, for teeing that up. And you're 100% right. Ignorance is absolutely not a defense. And I I had a lawyer, I had a paralegal in the company, and I had a lawyer that I had paid probably close to $1 million in legal advice over 12, 15 years. I don't remember how many. Like, I took this stuff seriously, and it just didn't do anything. You know, the line I told you about, what's your goal? My attorney, the main one who was positioned to me for the longest, and I like him. I have nothing against him. I'm not upset with him or
Yeah.
anything, but he didn't know it. He very plainly, when Greg got involved, Greg caught it like this, and the other attorney was like, "Oh, that's a problem." And I remember thinking, "Why is that a surprise to you? I pay you to know this stuff.
A
Like,
lot of
what
money
the
to
hell?"
know.
Right? So, so what happens is about 6 months into the case, I have my aha moment where I think, if nothing else, just to tell my side of the story, I have to write this book. Don't say that, because it'll tell my side of the story, but I got to teach the market the things I'm learning. And I'm the only one who can do this, because lawyers can't write this book. Because when you read their books, it makes you want to hit yourself in the head with it. Like, you don't understand anything they're saying. Like, I have this joke with Greg too. Sometimes I'll be on with Greg. I'm like, Greg, talk to us about testimonials. And he's like, Section 14. Da, 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 da. I'm like, oh my God, dude, just,
Can you just say it in
just say it
English?
the way I said it.
Yeah.
What? So, so I was like, okay, I want to write this book. Maybe it'll be my redeeming thing, right? It'll be like the cathartic thing I do. It'll be like my my atonement. And I'll put it out there and I'll give it to people and whatever. I wasn't thinking about turning it into a whole thing. Now, at the same time, around that same time that I made a decision to do this, I get a legal bill. So I was already paying a legal bill for the defense against the FTC, which was astronomical. Okay. And remember, I'm not making really any money now. The business has gone from making 4 million a month or 3 point some million a month to, like, I don't know, barely anything. Okay. Living off savings. I get a bill one month. It's like $22,000. All right. And that was just for compliance reviews. Because at this point, I'm trying to make some money, right, to pay salaries, but everything has to go through review because I am under the microscope. And I knew, because every time I would send an email saying something, then 2 days later, the FTC would be like, hey, by the way, you said this, like, prove it. Right. So they're watching at that time. I'm actively under investigation. And I'm thinking, like, what the heck did I just, I can't justify 22 grand a month like this on, like, just getting stuff reviewed. Like, this, plus it would take like 2 weeks sometimes to hear back. Marketers and business owners, we move like this, man. I think of an idea tonight, I want to launch it tomorrow morning, not 2.5 weeks from now. So it was March of 2023 that I'm going through this. Okay. December of 2022 was when ChatGPT took off. And AI was like, oh, AI. And I was like, when AI first, I was like, well, whatever, it's just a stupid toy, right? But by March, I'm like, could AI help with this? Could I,
Right.
like, start having my stuff reviewed a little bit and, like, maybe I don't want to replace a lawyer, and I don't think any software ever does, but can I, like, drastically cut it back to like 3, 4 grand a month, 2 grand a month, and, like, have software do the rest? I thought it would be really easy. I thought it would take like 3, 4 months to code the whole thing, and I hired a developer, and because I was like, oh, just prompt ChatGPT. What's the big deal? Oh my God. It's been a year and a half. We finally have gotten there. We are killing it. The software is so awesome, but it took me $500,000 invested to get to where we are. And we're still like 90% there. There's still more to be done. But now the book has taken off. It's doing super well. I'm so blessed to, like, just people are really embracing the message, and they're learning, and they're having their eyes open. We built a whole academy, compliant marketing academy, that has done really well. And then the software, we just beta launched it in June on my birthday. And actually, we're not even fully open right now. We're not, like, marketing it until about 2 weeks from the time that we're filming this. But now we are getting ready to launch a feature that allows, for example, your listeners right now, as our gift, to just go to it and for free get a score. Just get a score. You won't see all the detailed lists. I mean, you have to upgrade for that, but it's $100 a month. But you can see the score. And here's the thing: a lot of people are like, well, what is an absolute statement? How do I know how do I know if there's something I have to substantiate? Don't worry about it. The software will tell you exactly what you need to substantiate. How do I know if something's an implied earnings claim? My God, I would never catch the what is your goal? Don't worry about it. The software will catch all of those and let you know. Force, false scarcity, value stacking, express earnings claims. There's 23 different categories of potential warnings and violations. And then what we've also done is we've quantified compliance, right? So this is kind of also patent pending and very, very, very rough beta, which is how do we algorithmically give you a score for your copy or for your sales calls, so that you can kind of understand gradiently how bad it is, right? So there's no number below 100 that's okay, but at the same time, it's like, 40 is really different from 90. Like
Yeah.
if you're at a 40%, you have like a big problem. The last thing I would say about this software, which is so cool, is because I told you Section 19 telesales carries the highest risk, we've integrated with 16 of the top call cloud systems. And so now you don't have to rely on a human being to spot check and listen to random calls of your sales team. If you have a sales team, the software will score every call and give you active alerts and notifications when there are big issues or really low scored calls or certain violations are made in a call. And you will get active live daily, weekly scores on each of your agents and all your teams. So you can monitor in one place what your sales team is doing and now have a compliance headquarters to just check across the board. And the software's got a lot of other really amazing features coming. It's still a baby, but our mission is to turn this into your central hub for state AG, federal, trade commission, SEC, FDA, like just compliance hub. But for the moment, right now, it's like you can go feed it. I'll give you an example. With 4.5 hour webinar, it was a 500 megabyte file. I clicked and dragged the video over into Complyly. It took exactly 15 minutes, and I had a thorough review, line by line, of a 4.5 hour webinar. That used to take me 2 to 3 weeks with an attorney, and about 7 to 10 grand in legal fees.
Wow.
Um, I was just doing a demo before we got on here to record, and we took a sales page that was long. Those long sales
Yeah,
pages, it
yeah,
just
yeah.
keeps going. And it took exactly a minute and a half, 1.5 minutes. That's it.
That's
Took about
neat.
90 some seconds to review the whole page, live right in front of your eyes. So I'm really proud of what we've built. It's already serving and helping a lot of people, and it's just the beginning. So I'm really excited to be able to just help people. Because people just don't know. I mean, I would tell you 99% of business owners are good people, man. They're not out there trying to hurt
Scam.
or
Oh,
mess
right.
around or scam. They make mistakes they don't know.
Well, let's talk about your resiliency because between your accident, between this, you've got some amazing resiliency. So let's talk about how do you maintain your growth and your personal development through it's a shit show, right? When you look at it, you're like, oh my God, how are you not in bed right now?
And to be fair, there have been moments where I probably was. And
Right.
I and so you're gonna laugh at this. You ever watch the TV show Lost?
Yeah.
Okay.
I
So
just watched
Jack
it
and
for the
Kate.
first time.
Oh, really? Are you
Yeah.
watching season one?
I watched the whole series, like, just
Okay.
finished. Like, oh my God,
So
what's so
let's
good?
let's see if you remember this, okay? You might remember this scene. I'm in college and I still remember this scene. I don't know why. I mean, people always laugh at me. I'm like, one of my biggest personal development lessons was learned from this stupid show Lost in the first season. Jack and Kate, they're
Yeah.
having a conversation off to the corner. There's someone there is very sick. They need surgery. Jack's a surgeon, and he's not going to have anesthesia. Blah blah blah. And Kate's like, I think that was her name. She's like, how can you do this? How are you so calm? Blah blah blah. And he
He's
tells her a
afraid
story.
for 5 seconds or something.
Yes, the 10 second. Yes,
Yes,
100%. You nailed it. So
100%. That's so
so
good.
he talks about his story. He says, look, when I was a resident and when I first became an attending neurosurgeon, so he was a spinal surgeon, and he
Yeah.
says, my first surgery I ever had to do, I was on my own. And he
Right.
goes, I made the wrong cut, and the person's entire all their nerves just sprang out of their body like a balloon. And as far as I knew, I had just paralyzed this person for life.
Right.
And he's like, I was scared shitless.
Right.
And he goes, but at the same time, I was this person's only hope.
Right.
If there was a way to save their life and make sure they're not paralyzed, it was me.
Right.
So he goes, but instead of just getting over it or whatever and trying to like push through. I made an agreement with myself. And I said, I'm going to give myself 10 seconds to feel every ounce of this fear,
Right.
to just let it seep in, to feel the emotion instead of burying it or rushing past it. I'm going to feel it. But the agreement with myself is that at 10 seconds, so by second 11, I'm taking control. I'm over it. I won't allow the feeling to overtake me anymore. I'm going to get my head down and I'm going to get this thing fixed. I don't know why that just really resonated with me in college. And it was really after that college. It was a year after that that I got really deathly ill. And I was in the ICU and stuff for 92 days. So I remember thinking about that and thinking how important it is to not bury feelings and to not bury things because they come up later. They almost always come up later versus just experience them at that moment and have an agreement with them as to how they are going to be ended, right? And so when this all happened, I have allowed myself to publicly talk about it. I've allowed myself to talk about how shitty it is, how much it sucks. I've allowed myself to just acknowledge that 20 years of working hard and building and I'm starting from scratch. I've allowed myself to talk about the fact that I've gone 2+ years now, fighting to make just a few million a year versus when I was making a few million a month. And it sucks and lost all this additional money in the real estate. And what I've done is ask myself, what's the deeper message here? Right? I'm a very spiritual person, so I turn to God and say, and I start to see, or instead of being the victim, I start to see decisions and things that I did that I'm not going to say I was to blame, but that led to the outcome. Because I think everything, has a chain reaction. And if I can study that, I start to think, what's the silver lining in this? And as I shared with you earlier, I've sat back and thought, well, the first time I almost went bankrupt, I was doing 3 million a year. When I came out of that, actually doing 9, 10 million a year very
Right.
quickly thereafter. Then I almost went bankrupt again. And when I came out of that, I took the company out to over almost 40 million a year. So I was like, oh shit, man, I'm kind of excited to see what happens next because 3 times 40 is a big number, right? So I put myself in a different state of mind where I know that looking at the past to crib and cry is a waste of energy. To look at the past to learn so that you can apply, now that's an investment worth making. So my brain turns. But I will tell you that this all starts kind of my upbringing. My dad, growing up, my dad was tough on me, and I would complain about it. But he's the one who built this fortitude in me. I mean, you know, and if you got a 98 on an exam, why didn't you get 100? What
Right.
would you have to do to get 100? And at that time, it's very, very irritating as a kid. But now I'm like, damn, that 2% that he's taught me to get saved my life. So when
Right.
I was in the ICU, I'm literally dying. You know what? So this is a really funny story. You'll laugh. I got in trouble. They almost kicked me out of the hospital because the nurses were getting so pissed off at me because in the ICU, you're not allowed to have a phone. And back then, we didn't have iPhones. We had Blackberries.
Right.
And they would catch me under the sheets on my Blackberry. You know what I was doing? I was running my business.
Right.
I was doing product launches. I did a product launch. I would have meetings. I'd have my team come into my ICU room where I'm lying flat. Hell, I have a catheter. Like, I can't get out of bed to go to the bathroom, and I'm having a board meeting. I'm having a meeting with my team saying, let's go get this product launch done. And so the nurses were like, he keeps sneaking in phones. They would confiscate my phone. The next morning, I'd have my employee buy me a new phone and come right back in with another phone. So I made a deal with them. I said, I'll tell you what, there's a computer right here, nurse's station computer in my room. You don't let me use it. It's even got a whole pivoting thing. I can lie down and use it. So give me that computer when the nurse is not using it. And if I can use the computer, I won't get on my phone. So I'm sitting here negotiating. And I remember finally, then one of the nurses came back to me and she was laughing and she said, what is with you? I'm like, what? She's like, you're workaholic. It's just like, it's too much. Like, why can't you just rest and recover? And I looked at her and I said, and do what? Watch Seinfeld reruns
Right.
morning till night? I'm going to lose my mind. And I
Right.
just remember looking at her and I said, look, if I'm breathing, I'm fighting for my dreams, period.
Well, we all know as an entrepreneur, your brain never stops, right? You're
Yep.
always going, what else could I do? How can I connect this? There's no like, Netflix and chill, for the most part, I'm always like, oh my God, what about, Hannah? What about Debbie? What about Cindy? What about how do I do
Yeah.
this? How do we increase sales? How do we, so I
Well,
think we are a rare breed and people don't really understand. It's the work
well,
for me when I stop working, right? That's when the
it
work.
was Well, that's the problem. Yeah, so I'll tell you what happened. A different nurse, there was a head nurse. She had been a nurse there for like 40 years. She was actually retiring the next month. So when my surgery was done, And I survived. And about a week and a half after that, they were releasing me to go home. This nurse made it a point to come to see me. And she was like, I needed to come see you and just wish you the best. I'm retiring next month. I hope you never have to come back here. And I was like, yeah, cool. And she got kind of stops and she goes, I just want you to know something. She goes, we didn't save your life. The doctors didn't save your life. The nurses didn't save your life. She goes, I've been doing this for 40 years. I've never met a patient like you. She goes, if there's someone who saved your life in this hospital during the last 3 months, it was you. You saved your own life. She goes, I've never seen someone with the attitude you have. I've never seen someone with the drive you have. I've never seen someone who can. So by the way, when they were wheeling me into the surgery room, right? Granted, they start medicating you a little bit, so it could have been the meds talking, but I've just been told. So I've already wheeled away from my family. My sister had rushed in from the island. She was at school and she had just gotten a chance to glimpse of me just to say possibly goodbye forever. So they've told me like that might have been the last time I ever see my family. Like I may never wake up from this thing. And so they're moving me over to the surgical table, which is like this big metal table. As soon as they did that, I made a joke. I looked at them, I'm like, huh, I don't know why they say a deathbed is so uncomfortable. This place is fine. And like the doctors and nurses were like, "Oh my God, don't talk like that!" Like they got all, I'm like, guys, chill, man. Like I'm just making a joke. Like, oh, you guys are so like stuffy in here. Like let's like chill out a little bit. And I think that was just my perspective towards all of it, which was, I mean, I don't have control over the situation, right? Like I am where I am. Like right now, I can control what I can control. You know what I can control? I can control at the minute that this podcast is over. I go home to be with my kids and I get to control that I'm a good dad. I'm going to be with them until they go to bed. I get to be a good husband. I get to be a good son. And I get to be a good leader to my team and I get to keep fighting for the next thing that I believe in. I can control all of those things. So let's go focus on that. So this fact of matter attitude has just kind of come through the tribulations. I've been through so much at the age of 41 that now I just don't get faced. I mean, I get bad news. I'm just like, okay,
Right
like
now.
it's just like, get in line with all the other things that have happened. So but that's, I mean, I know it's a not necessarily like a little hack or a trick. I'm gonna answer your question, but I just accepted it. This is the life we
It was
choose
the
as an
perfect,
entrepreneur.
it was the perfect answer. Exactly
Yeah,
what,
it's the
you,
life we choose. If you want to be an entrepreneur, you're gonna have the great days, but more than the great will be the tough and challenging days. If that bothers you, don't be an entrepreneur. It
right.
doesn't bother me.
Okay, as we wrap, let's talk about your book because software is still coming out. The book's an easy, yes, you can do your checklist, you can figure out. So let's talk about, the purpose behind it, talk about what the meat is, why I need to buy it, where I need to buy it. I'm assuming Amazon.
Yeah. So funny enough, actually, no, it's not on Amazon right now. It's actually only sold through our site, mostly because we're building that community and we want to make sure we can get everybody together, but we will be putting it on Amazon soon. So Don't Say That has been written by me. I wrote it. Just so anyone knows, I'm a traditionally trained copywriter. Actually a really good writer. It's one of the skills that I really am not humble about with myself. And I tell you that because you're going to want to read this book because it's an easy read and it takes this complicated legal talk and presents it in a very easy to understand examples, stories, fun read. People read it quickly. People read this on a flight. The book covers the most common reasons that companies get hit by the FTC, and it tells you what not to do, what not to say. Don't say that.
Right.
Now, it's co-authored Greg Christiansen, 20 years compliance attorney, one of the top in the country, amazing guy, brilliant, has been in hundreds of meetings with the FTC, has read over 2,000 cases. Like the guy knows this stuff like the back of his hand. So his knowledge, my writing came together, put this book together. You can go to don'tsaythat.com. When you go there, you're going to see two things. One is the book and our podcast. We have a weekly podcast where we talk about what's going on in the world of regulation, not just FTC, but state AG, class action lawsuits, all of it. So don'tsaythat.com/go, G-O, is the book sales page. The digital version, $7. We'll ship it to you if you're in the US, $10. If you're international, $20. And it comes with a full community, a Facebook group community. It comes with some awesome bonuses. The community is active. We're almost at 1,000 members. I'm in there multiple times a day answering questions, helping people. So it's way more than just the book.
Right.
And you'll be able to see how mission driven it really is because we just are really trying to get the word out. And so don'tsaythat.com/go is the book, or don'tsaythat.com. And then you can see our podcast. And then the software I had mentioned earlier, You can run a free scan. Go to Complyly, COMPLILY.com. And, we can help make sure really quickly help you get your marketing in order.
So we'll have all these in the show notes so that if you didn't write it down fast enough, so know that we got your back. So I want to say, thank you for your inspiration. Thank you for telling the truth. This is what I love about my podcast is people just tell the raw truth, right? If you're inspired by what you heard, please share with your community. This is one of those things that you think could never happen to you. I've heard it thousands of times with clients with the IRS. We don't want this to happen to you. Stay connected with Anik, right? Help him with his mission as well to help entrepreneurs thrive in every sense of the word. Until next time, keep powering your profits and remember your greatness is just one decision away. I'm your host, Dr. Susie Carter, with my amazing guest who is so honest and truthful. Anik, thank you again. I appreciate you and I celebrate you for taking your lemons and making lemonade and helping us so that we can stay compliant as well.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Power Your Profits podcast. Let these building blocks from today's most successful industry leaders equip you with the necessary resources and tools to finally establish the highly profitable business of your dreams. Want to hear more? Listen to more episodes at www.poweryourprofitspodcast.com. And don't forget to subscribe to the show. Now is your time to rise to the top of your game. So be sure to catch our next episode. Until next time.